Well, hello everyone! We're back with Sunrider, Liberation Day. We're going to try the return story starting today, and it has been quite a while. That's probably for the best. I may have forgotten many things. That might be for the worse. Whatever. Let's just get right into the return story, which was released a fair bit of time after the main game was released, so hopefully they have improved, well, upon things in the game that they couldn't do in the main story. Alright. Let's see. An alternative universe retelling of the main story where Kato Shields mysteriously wakes up 3 days before the Liberation Day massacre, somehow aware of who will betray him. Armed with the knowledge of the future, he embarks on a desperate race against time to change the bleak future. Please don't... Never mind. But will he successfully rewrite the past, or will his story end with his bloody death? This is going to be fun. I must say, though, well, this has plenty of endings. I tend not to play visual novels for multiple endings. So, well, let's see what happens, shall we? Let's see what happens. I have no idea what to expect. But it's probably best that if I try to remember what happened in the previous story. From the moment humanity began to unravel the mysteries of quantum theory, scientists and emperors alike became obsessed with a singular technology. During the search for this Holy Grail, countless other findings, which would come to greatly aid and terrorize humanity, were discovered. The warp drive. Warheads, which could level entire continents. Faster than light communications. Even a massive doomsday weapon, which could extinguish entire stars. The Paradox Core. But all those powers were irrelevant next to what would be possible with the Holy Grail. A time machine. In its most simple application, one could undo past mistakes. If an action ended up causing an adverse reaction later in time, one could simply travel to before when the action was made and react differently, with the benefit of hindsight. The full implications of such a device were still far from awesome. One could stop aging, freeze time for everyone else but oneself, and perform an unlimited number of actions while everyone else was frozen. Hey, that's the plot of Chrono Master. Translocate other people and objects anywhere at any time. Become older, become younger. Given an infinite amount of time, one could become anyone and accomplish anything. By no exaggeration, someone with a time machine would not be a human, but a god. Alice Ashada pondered those thoughts as she walked through the diode cloning facility. Why is she thinking about time machines all of a sudden? Her steps took her to a familiar location, her old office. It was here where, for the merest sliver of a second, she brushed her fingers against that almighty power. She has a time machine. Or the Paradox Project. The galaxy's greatest and most dangerous minds had gathered here, in the furthest corner of the galaxy, to finally attain what had eluded humanity for so long. They were exiled Alliance researchers and new Imperial scientists deemed too dangerous even for the tyrants of New Eden. But attempt after attempt, year after year, they had failed to produce results. Computations done through their best supercomputers and artificial intelligences failed to yield breakthroughs. It was then, when they realized such knowledge was beyond the comprehension of mere humans, they needed to create a new race, capable of thought processes beyond the capacity of even the most gifted of Homo sapiens. First, a prototype was created, Alice Ashada. They watched her, raised her as a one of their own, even gave her the surname of the director of the Paradox Project, who assumed the role of her father. The prototype produced some promising results, accomplishing what supercomputers and the galaxy's best minds could not. Alice successfully translocated molecules by fractions of a second. A breakthrough produced even before the artificial girl had turned 16. Using the lessons learned from the prototype, the Alpha was finally created. Alice's teeth clenched. The prototype proved far more difficult to control than her creators believed, as she accidentally discovered the truth of her existence. Her belief that she was a normal human girl who lived with her caring parents in a research station was shattered that day, the first of the many pieces of her sanity which would break following that day. The memories. Is that when you decided to change the lighting scheme, or was it always dark red? But Alice's life did not have such a happy conclusion. Alsa's voice disturbed Alice. Her younger sister approached her. Alpha touched Alice's eye with her index finger. A single droplet of tear ran down her finger as she wiped Alice's eye. Alice turned around, putting her back to her sister. She closed off her mind, so her younger sister would not see the depths of her madness. Something more powerful than a captain. Wow, imagine that. Oh, would it now? So who would get things done? Your clones? Suddenly, Alpha embraced her sister from behind. Alice stiffly touched her sister's hand. The threat, you say? Alice took her sister's arms off her and walked away by herself. With that, Alice Ashada walked into the shadows. That place really is poorly lit. Shields tossed and turned in his sleep. Vivid images flashed in his mind. This was different from the other nightmares, the ones he would have of blood-soaked faces at Ongus, where that young girl would die again and again. Sheesh. He would see her pick up the knife every time, but despite knowing what was going to happen, his body would be paralyzed. Then her face would morph into his sister, Murray. Oh, tonight's nightmare was different. Images flashed by, too quick to decipher, but something horrible had happened. No, will happen. He was going to make a horrible mistake. Suddenly, he jolted awake. He realized he was in his bed. He shook his head, relieved that he was just having a nightmare. Wait a minute. He felt someone sleeping beside him. What do you... Shield spun around, pulled the cover off his bed, revealing a certain... What? Ah, jeez. Of course anything involving time travel would have something to do with her. Shields leapt out of his bed and stood straight as a steel rod, eyeing Claude with outrage. Certainly he had known the ship's doctor would go to any lengths to molest him, but actually break into his quarters after hours. Besides, his room was locked with the strongest encryption protocol on board the ship. Ikari had seen to it that his door would not be broken into ever again. Just how did this buffoon of a doctor get here? Sheesh. For a moment he tried to recall if he had been drinking heavily in the mess hall before arriving at his quarters. No doubt this lecherous doctor would have used such a lapse in his defences to catch him onto him in his... Wait, to latch onto him into his bedside. Huh? Thankfully he recalled that he had merely been filling out paperwork the whole night, before finally deciding he had had enough and resigning himself to listening to Ava's lectures in the morning. Claude opened her eyes with a yawn. Good morning. How did you bypass security to get in here? She probably didn't even have to do that, honestly. So... a contented deep sleep. I'm sure you're lying about some quantity of all this. And Shields rubbed his face in irritation, the conversation obviously not going anywhere. Hey, cut it out. I'm asking you to tell me what you're doing here. Yeah, it's clear to me. I think. As if on cue, Shields heard the door to his cabin open. What? He quietly knelt down behind his bed. Why? Oh, wait. Oh, of course, it was supposed to be locked, wasn't it? If there was another intruder at his office, then it would mean that the security protocols on his door had failed entirely. He still had bad memories of what had happened the last time someone had broken into his room, and wasn't about to take any chances this time. He quietly reached into his closet and withdrew a concealed pistol. He signaled to Claude to hide behind him. Oh, she won't have to do that. Shields grimaced when Claude gripped onto him from behind, her massive moves leading 2 impressions on his back. Exactly the kind of thing you want in a serious situation, she whispered into his ear. Of course, you probably know exactly what's going to happen. Poor Shields. How do you know that? Yeah, I thought it might be Chigara, because of course she would be the intruder. Of course she would be the one who disables cameras and security locks. Suddenly, Shields heard Chigara's voice upstairs. Chigara, what is she doing in the office at this time? Granted, someone as talented as her could easily crack Ikari's security protocols, but why would she? Suddenly he felt something tear through his psyche, as if a bullet had just gone through his temple. But what he saw next completely shattered the remaining bits of his mind. Come on, before the commander sees us. It was him. Shields watched, his jaws agape, as his identical clone took Chigara's hand and plopped her on top of his lap, on his desk. Oh boy. So it's not a case of us actually being the exact same person. That's interesting. Even though his first instinct was to barge into Chigara and his clone's little romantic rendezvous, gun in hand, and demand answers, his military training kept him firmly hidden behind his bed, looking for an escape route. I wonder how the, let's say, past Shields did not heal, present Shields and Claude having their little talk just downstairs. He racked his brain for a possible explanation for this bizarre turn of events. Could this be a packed plot? Did they embed a spy wearing a hollow mask to impersonate him? No, that would never work. First off, anyone boarding the ship was subjected to a full DNA scan. Then, could it be the prototypes? That seemed a possibility, as they had a massive army of clones. Could they have acquired his DNA sample somewhere? All it would take to breed a second Kato Shield would be a strand of his hair, left somewhere unwittingly by him. But it would still take a lifetime of training for a clone to successfully imitate him, and there was no way someone as intimate with him as Chigara would fall for a trick like that with so easily. Really. He had to calm his racing mind. For now, he had to escape detection and alert ship security. Or something. He racked his brain, again, for what the proper protocol for dealing with the doppelganger of the ship's captain was. But for some reason he couldn't remember being taught anything about it during his training at the Space Force Academy. Ha ha. Perhaps he slept through that one. I like how the game is like coming up with alternate reasons why this is happening, when we really already know why it is happening. Of course, the ship's design had left open a number of secret escape routes he could use to leave this room. A warship was an inherently dangerous locality, and so a large number of concealed passageways crisscrossed the ship so that the crew would not be stranded in the event the ship lost structural integrity. Shields slowly opened his closet and tore off the carpeting below, exposing an access gate to a tunnel leading to Deck 0. To his relief, the gate still accepted his commands after he swiped the ID chip located on his sleeve on the security scanner. He opened the gate and motioned for Claude to follow him. After climbing down the tunnel, the pair dropped down from the ceiling onto the floor of the hallway. Shields immediately turned to Claude and interrogated her for answers. It seems like you have the better idea than I do about just what is going on here. I want answers, Doctor. I can remember everything just fine. I'm Captain K.O. Shields of the assault carrier Sunrider. We arrived at Sarah yesterday to take part in the critical operation to liberate our homeworld from Patch Loyalist forces in conjunction with the Alliance Combined Fleet. Everyone died and or betrayed me. After we arrived at Sarah, I spoke with the rider team in the mess hall. And then I returned to my office to do some paperwork. And the next thing I knew, I was in bed with you. And what are you talking about? How would I know what happened after? The operation hasn't even begun yet. Fantastic. I wonder if it will be timely. Shield's brain span a disturbingly high frequency at what Claude was implying. Temporal translocation? Memory loss? He had known Claude was a ditz, but this was on an entirely different level from her usual antics. There was no question something out of the galaxy was happening, though. He had just witnessed his body double flirting with Chigara as if it was the most casual thing in the world. He closed his eyes and tried his best to remember just how he had got there. Those images again. Bloody flashes of horror flashed in his head. Yeah, flashes tend to do that. He had no idea where they took place or when. But he knew Chigara was somehow involved. Those aren't just images. They're my memories, aren't they? A massacre. Everything we worked for destroyed. Horror. Once again, Shield's head received another bombshell of a revelation. What was Claude even saying? Bring him back to rewrite the past? Something like that was impossible. Suddenly, more memories played black in his head. You're telling me Claude is a time traveler? Shields rubbed his spinning head and fought back the mounting nausea. While his understanding of what had, or will, happen was still foggy, like trying to recall a dream he had seen months ago, Claude's seemingly impossible explanation seemed validated by what fragmentary memories he still retained. Okay then. We'll alert ship security and then detain Chigara. Problem solved, right? He shook his head at his own naivety. Of course, resolving this wasn't going to be that simple. For all intents and purposes, the Kato Shields hitting on Chigara in his office right now was the captain everyone accepted in this timeline. If he just revealed himself now, he would be the one to get detained and questioned. And given his doppelganger's infatuation with the chief, he doubted that convincing him that she was a spy would be so easy, especially from inside a brig cell. The fact that he had less than 72 hours to stop the massacre meant he couldn't afford to risk getting confined in the brig for the duration of the coming battle. he had to take a more covert approach. No. The proper protocol in such a situation would be to confine the captain's doppelganger in the brig for further questioning, which to everyone in this timeline would be me. We can't afford to blow our cover. We'll have to approach this differently. Recruit one person to help us. Someone we can trust. Then the three of us, we work from the shadows to prevent the disaster from occurring. Understood. He gave that question a long thought. That person would have to be... Ah, jeez. I don't think so. Also, how come Kriska isn't in this list? Oh well. I'm leaning towards Solar because she would be the calmest one. But also Ikari because she seems like this kind of job would be perfect for her. And hey, maybe we can help her with that cat cafe. Right. Alright, but we'll make this choice next time, everyone. That seems like a good place to stop. And so far, well, it's not playing out quite how I imagined. I thought we would be playing as the same Kato that we had played before, rather than a doppelganger. So that's interesting. I was also wondering whether this story would have voices or not, and it doesn't. So, back to old Sunrider, I guess. I wonder if it has battles. It probably doesn't have battles, because this seems to take place in a very short amount, in a very short time span. But anyway, I will see you next time. Thanks for your patience, everyone. Bye for now.